Welcome to the Achieve Your Apex podcast. Chad Hyams here with another special episode. That's right, a guest interview I'm bringing you. As we're working through our way through the Achieve Your Apex book, and I'm sharing tips with you, I want to bring in other people's opinions on how you can achieve your apex. So my friend and yours, if you know him, host of the No Days Off podcast and so many other things, please welcome today Brian Gubernick. Brian, thanks for joining us today.
Chad, thanks a ton for having me. I love this Achieve Your Apex conversation. I think there's some things we do at No Days Off that certainly mirror this idea of getting after your apex, achieving your apex. I love this message. So thank you so much for having
Brian,
me on.
I said you're my friend and everybody's friend who knows you, yet not everybody knows you. So give a brief intro. Who is Brian and all that other stuff that you want to share with our audience?
You know, who is Brian, man? This is brief, huh? I think, like many of your listeners, I'm a guy that's been at it for 15, 20 years in business and in life and family, all of these areas, right? Just every single day aiming to get a little bit better. I think fortunately for me, Chad, I've had a few more W's than I've had L's so far. And so I'm net positive. But I think for me, every day I'm just trying to improve in my business or my relationships or my health. And again, that's why I so much love this Achieve Your Apex conversation.
All right. So look, when I say achieve your apex, I could mean getting to the top of the mountain at 29,029, which I know you've taken on or taking on again. I can also mean it within business. I can mean it in our relationship. The apex can be anything our audience is setting. Brian, I just want to ask you, and we're going to keep this as a short conversation for everybody as we do with all these episodes. Tell me, what's your advice? What's your best tip for everybody if they want to achieve an apex of their own?
Well, I define apex for sake of this conversation. When I think about apex, I think about reaching potential. Okay. I will reference kind of that good to great. Like I think so many of us, myself included, can become super complacent with good. When I think about achieving your apex, though, I think that's going from good to great. So the question for me then is, all right, Brian, what should I do to go from good to great? And the answer, Chad, when you first, I mean, of course, this question went through my mind and there's so many different great answers, but I'll tell you what I kept coming back to. I think that in order to achieve your apex, you've got to get weird. Okay. Now stick with me. I know that's an interesting answer. I think you got to get weird. Here's what I mean. What is the definition of weird? Weird, what we consider weird, are doing things that are different than the status quo. Okay. Doing things differently than the status quo. So when I think about achieving my apex, when I think about going from good to great, the only way you're going to be doing those things is if you're doing things that are in fact different than everybody else around you. I mean, it's just human nature. It's just how we are as humans. Like there is a bell curve and the middle of the bell is a big, big area. That's called average. That's called the middle. If you want to be at your apex, that puts you in the minority. And anytime you study success, I challenge you, study success, not just in business or in wealth, but in health or in relationships. Odds are those individuals having massive success are doing things different than everybody else around them. In other words, bringing it back, they're weird. They're weird. So I think about getting weird. Now, how do you get weird, right? First, I'd ask you to look in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I doing that's different than everybody else around me? How am I behaving? What time am I waking up? What's my morning look like? What do I read every day? Who do I surround myself with? What are the thoughts going through my head? And are all of these things or some of these things different than the status quo? And if the answer is, as you're looking in the mirror, no, then I would say, well, if you want to achieve your apex, you better figure out how to get weird. You need to figure out how to do things different. Study some of the most successful people. Let's talk business real quick. All right. Whose name always comes up? Elon Musk right now. All right. That dude is weird.
Yes, that's true.
And he's not weird for all the reasons many of us know. He's weird to me because I have never heard of anyone thinking at the level that guy thinks. He builds his companies today. Why? Because he wants to freaking colonize Mars. Imagine waking up every day with a vision to colonize Mars, what your behavior might look like. How about Jobs or Elon, or Gates or Bezos or Oprah? Everything that those individuals are like, they're successful in their areas. If you study each and every one of them, they are as weird as can
It's
be.
interesting you say that because we look at them now as a success and we don't recognize the weird because so many people have copied them or are attempting to copy them that what was weird almost now seems a little average because so many people are attempting to do it. Yet these people were all really leaders in being weird, as you're saying.
It's such a great observation. You could get outside of business and go to athletics. Let's go to, I always go to
Sure.
Kobe.
Jordan and Kobe.
Right? Like, study Kobe. He's as weird as they come. And when I say weird, what was weird about Kobe? The guy worked on basics. Even at the time he was the greatest player in the world, he was still doing the most basic things. Take like a Steph Curry. He starts every day by shooting 2 feet away from the basket. Now, I'm not a basketball player, but I'm going to assume that the greatest shooter, quite possibly of all time, starting his day 3 feet from the basket versus shooting 3-pointers that he makes on the regular, that's a weird behavior. My point here, though, is as we keep going through this, you can find these individuals that are massively successful. They're doing things different than the status quo. So you got to think different, as Jobs would say. You got to get weird, right? Now, one thing that's super weird that I try to apply throughout my world that I think your listeners can apply as well. It is the concept of inversion, using this concept of inversion, which means that you think about things in the inverse. So rather than saying like, hey, what are the active steps for me to go succeed in X, Y, and Z? I like to ask the question, what does a failure look like in achieving X, Y, and Z? In other words, how could I fail?
Okay.
And then solve for those potential points of failure so they don't occur.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. If my objective is, today I'm going to get better at health, or this month I'm going to get better at health. And for me, just in this example, that means I need to lose 5 pounds. Rather than asking, what are the steps for me to go lose 5 pounds? I would ask, what would I have to mess up? Or what would I have to fail at for me not to achieve that objective? And you could start working in the inverse. I think this inversion concept should be applied all across the board. I look at my daughters and my relationship. Instead of asking like, how do I have the greatest relationship with my 13-year-old and my 11-year-old daughters? I like to ask, gosh, what would I have to do or not do for them not to think our relationship is great? I think that inversion concept or thinking about things in that direction is weird. Right? So it's not all about getting up in the morning and jumping in the cold plunge, though that is something we should probably be doing, just throwing that out there. It is just thinking about things differently, approaching things different than the status quo if you want different results.
I think that inversion concept, there you go, folks. Brian is giving you, right? Be weird. And he's giving you a specific way he's being weird that we could look at 10 years from now and everybody's doing it because it's become average because Brian has grown to such levels and everybody has said, I want to be more like Brian. He's the Elon Musk. He's the Steve Jobs in his area. And now it's become more normal. We do everything we can to run away from pain. We do everything. So if you can figure out what that is, you're going to immediately start running away from, well, if I don't sit and talk with them for 15 minutes every day, I'm going to have, okay, I got to make sure I do that because I'm running away from the negative. What a great, great point, Brian.
It's so smart. I mean, along that, as you were saying that, Chad, it made me think about something that's become the norm. But when Jocko Willink first started doing it, no one really thought of it as norm. And that's extreme ownership, right? Like Jocko wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. But the idea was own everything. Everything rises and falls with you as the leader, right? So take complete ownership over those things. And that, when he first introduced that, I know that some people were thinking, yeah, I'm the leader, I own it. No, he was saying extreme. No matter the outcome, you own it. And remember, this was a guy who was talking about it not in business. He was talking about it in war. He was talking about it in some of the most aggressive sort of environments known to man. My point here is that actually is now regular business speak. I'm the leader, I own it. It's on me. It's called extreme ownership. Read a book.
Brian, I got to tell
you know what I mean?
It's probably the last book that brought a tear to my eye. I actually was reading it on an airplane and remember crying as it was just hitting me what he was saying. What a powerful message. And thank you for bringing
Yeah.
that up. Folks, if
Yeah.
you want to hear more from Brian Gubernick, I challenge you, get weird and make sure you're listening to No Days Off every single day so that you can hear the weird things Brian is bringing you there, because you're going to find the one that's going to help you achieve your apex. Brian, we appreciate you taking just a few moments out of your day to share with our audience on their growth and on achieving that path. I know that they'll all be jumping over and hearing No Days Off soon. If they wanted to get a hold of you other than just listening to No Days Off, they want to follow you, connect with you, what's the best way for any of them to do it?
You know, Chad, I've committed in 2024 to be more engaged with Instagram and my social. So find me on Instagram. I think it's just B Gubernick. See what I mean? I got to learn even what my handle is here. You can find me on Instagram, or I'm all over the place. Like you, Chad, I try to be as active and engaged and as weird as possible. So you're bound to run into me somewhere, but find me on the socials. Love to connect.
All right, everybody. Now you know it. Get out there, do what you're doing to achieve your apex, and keep climbing.